Bien.
No.
Ok, entonces es un gran placer. We're going to do, ¿vamos a hacer en español o inglés?
Como usted desee, yo intentaré hacer mi mejor esfuerzo con el inglés.
Okay, perfecto. So it's a great pleasure. Thank you so much. We have Bernardo on screen. We have Bernardo Reyes-Tur from the Universidad de Santiago de Cuba, de Oriente, perdón, de Oriente. Here, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. And in our audience, in person, we have Alec Lewis, who's a postgraduate student, and we have Professor Angus Davison, who's a professor of evolutionary genetics. We're all going to be talking about that lovely shell, the Polymita picta, the mollusk of the year. And Bernardo's talk is entitled The Cuban Painted Snail Beyond an Award. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Bernardo. Over to you.
So, can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation and for introduction. And it is the first thing I want to say is that it is a great pleasure to be here with you and to say thank you for your time and for your interest in Cuba and in Polymita. Polymita is a genus endemic of Cuba. It comprises 6 species: Polymita picta, Polymita sulfurosa, Polymita muscarum, Polymita versicolor, Brockeri, y Venusta. The 6 species are included in the Cuban Red List of Invertebrates and belong to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. As you can see in this small map, each species has a very specific distribution, and the occurrence extent of each species is in all cases less than 20,000 square kilometers. In this point, I would like to explain, in my opinion, that Polymita is very close to the Cuban science history.
Sorry, Bernardo, las diapositivas no están pasando. Yo creo que tienes que pinchar en la izquierda. Ahí, eso sí, ahora sí.
It's not seeing the presentation because you cannot see. Okay. Windows. ¿Dónde está el PowerPoint? ¿Pero cerró?
Now?
Perfect. So you want to move it. ¿Quieres pasarlo para ver si pasa? Un momento. Get my exercise. Hi, Chris. Bueno, está pasando, ¿no? Ahora se ve.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to stay here for a while. Perfect.
Well, the genus Polymita comprises 6 species from Cuba, endemic species from Cuba. Polymita picta, Polymita sulfurosa, Polymita muscarum, Polymita versicolor, Polymita brockeri, y Polymita venusta. The 6 species belong or were included in the Cuban Red List for invertebrates, and at the same time they belong to the CITES. It is the Trade for Endangered Species. At the same time, each species have an occurrence distribution very specific. For example, this one is the distribution of Polymita venusta. This the Polymita, this of Polymita brockeri, versicolor, picta, brockeri, and sulfurosa, and the other one it is for Polymita muscarum. So the occurrence extent, the distribution area of each species is less than 20,000 square kilometers. In my opinion, Polymita is very close with the Cuban science history. For example, this the case of Carlos de la Torre or Don Carlos de la Torre y Huerta. For he was or he is the founder of the Cuban malacology. Or is the main scientist, a founder. But this scientist was start his studies for land snail because when he was a young very young, he worked. He had in her hands a sample of Polymita, but this sample of Polymita was collected in part by Don Felipe Poey y Aloy.
So Bernardo, you need to press on the next slide on the left because we're still looking at all of your Polymitas. La siguiente diapositiva, la 3. Creo que es la 3, ¿no?
The next one.
Yeah.
This?
So we are looking at the Polymitas.
This.
Cuban red list. Have you passed to the next slide?
Yes. And now?
On the left. No, on the left. If you just use the list on the left, la lista de las diapositivas a la izquierda, es mejor usar esa lista.
I think he's got to go on. He's on presentation mode and we're seeing the normal.
Okay. Ahora sí, ahora sí.
The second one. This one?
That's the Polymitas.
Yes.
And
this
the
is
next
species.
One? These are the species. And the next one? Science history. Good. Okay.
So.
Good. I think we're okay.
So, in my opinion, the Polymita genus is very close to the Cuban science history. Because, for example, Don Carlos de la Torre y Huerta, he is the founder of the Cuban malacology, and he started his studies about land snail because when he was a young man, he was in contact with a collection that was in part prepared by Don Felipe Poey. And after this part of his life working with Polymita, he decided to dedicate the entire life, his entire life to land snail. The work of Carlos de la Torre y Huerta, called or named or titled the genus Polymita, is a seminal work in the history of the Cuban malacology and in the history of malacology of Polymita studies. But there is another great mind in the malacology of malacological studies of Cuba is Vicente Berovides Alvarez. He was a professor as Carlos de la Torre. He was a professor of Havana University, Faculty of Biology. For me, he was probably the most prominent evolutionary biology of Cuba of the last century, at least the last half of the last century. He was professor of evolutionary biology at Havana University, and his PhD thesis was about Polymita picta as well. So, as Theodosius Dochansky said sometimes nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of the biology. And for me, it is these three men are very related with Polymita, and they are yes, because for me the three are alive, and his thoughts are very useful and very important in the history of the Cuban science, at least for science, biological science. So, but Polymita is as well a source of art inspiration. For example, this painter is a young painter, amateur young painter, called Luis Carlos Garcia Benavides, and part of his work has been dedicated to Polymita. Look at this nice painting. But not only Polymita has been inspiration for amateur artists in Cuba. It has been inspiration for professional painters and professional photographers like Raimundo Lopez Silveiro. In my opinion, the art is part of the culture. And of course, Polymita is part of Cuban culture too. They are these artists are not the only persons inspired by Polymita. In addition, we could say that Polymita is very close for in our culture, Cuban culture, and tourism, the commerce of the tourism. For example, look at this example of some postage stamps with a figure with a image of land snails, Polymita, and of the Greek malacologist, our founder father, Carlos de la Torre y Huerta. On the other hand, we have a chain shop logo, probably of the shopping of tourism in Cuba, Caracol. Look at this image of Polymita. Caracol in Spanish is snail, you know. So look at this. Polymita is history. Polymita is art. Is a source of art, a source of art inspiration, and Polymita is culture and tourism. But look at this. Some years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, some journalists from the magazine Ranger Rick Mag from the United States contacted me. They were very interested to write something about Polymita in this magazine for children. I was in contact with them. I exchanged a lot of information about Polymita, and they published this small article in this magazine. But look at this. Some days after, or some weeks after this this article was published, I received in my email the following letter. Professor Reyes-Tur, greetings from Texas. My son, age 7, recently became interested in your conservation work and study of Polymita. Please find this letter and picture of his Polymita paintings attached to this email. He would like you to know that you may use this or his artwork in any way you would like. If you would help you raise funds for your work with the painted street. And best regards, Maria Leifer. I don't know these persons, but they keep the contact with me after this. Look at this. How? What is the in Spanish alcance of Polymita? Polymita has the capacity of put together persons to collaborate. These children, Joshua is the name of the son of Maria, help us to get votes for the contest for Mollusk of the Year in 2022. So we can make friendship or increase our friendship with the United States and with a person around the world because Polymita. It is very important. But now I would like to explain about how is our work or how has been our work in our lab. It is our work, our laboratory. Or it was our laboratory some years ago, probably in 2015 or so. Look at this. But our laboratory was changing until now. It is our laboratory now. It has been the result of our effort and hard work and the help, for example, of NABU agency from Germany. But all the work that allowed change our laboratory has been made with our own hands and the hand of my students. At the same time, we have received the help and the collaboration of persons like Professor John Allen from United Kingdom, from Southampton University, and from the Professor Joris Kuhn from Free University of Amsterdam. Without collaboration, without my students that are my college too, this laboratory improving would be impossible. My students, it's okay? My students are the soul of our laboratory, of my laboratory. They work night and day and always in the field and in the lab and always keep and smiling. Smile. So it is part of the Polymita effect. In 2020, we received the to Bruno De Amicis, a photographer from Italy, because she was sent by NABU agency from Germany. Bruno De Amicis was very interested in our lab, in our work, and took a lot of pictures of my students, of our lab. This is one of the pictures that he took, and this one too. But the missus contacted to Douglas Main, a journalist from National Geographic, and Douglas Main made an interview to us, and it is part of the article in National Geographic in 2022. It was very important for our rap, for our students, for our work. And then the same photographer, Bruno Damisis, found a possibility that because somebody pay attention to this picture and say, well, it is a good picture for the section in nature where I work. And then somebody, and very cordial journalist, make another interview, very short interview, and it is the paper or the article in Nature that mark both the article in National Geographic and the article in Nature, in the section where I work, mark and before and after in the collaboration, international collaboration of our laboratory. And then in 2021, we decided, thanks to the advice of the Joris Kuhn from Amsterdam, Free University of Amsterdam, we participate by first time in the contest Mollusk of the Year. But in this occasion, we got only the second place because Polymita picta was the species that we select to participate in this contest. But in this case, we only got the second place. In 2022, then the Professor Angus Davison and Joris Kuhn as well say us, Bernard, what advice us, Bernardo, please, we think that Polymita could win this second time. Please participate again in this contest, and we participate, and we won the mollusk of the year, or no we, no me, no our laboratory. Polymita picta won this contest with 192 votes. It was a great winning, and we are very happy because this winning means that the genome or the sequencing of the genome could be due. But what is our work with Polymita, mainly Polymita picta? It is just a sample of the diversity of shell color polymorphism of this enigmatic species. Look at this, from yellow to green, and a lot of lines, very nice lines, or bands, we call it bands. What do we do in our work? Well, we try to study the shell color polymorphism. Look at this diversity of pattern, from yellow with black and white bands. It is white or yellow with yellow bands or white bands. It is a very nice green with a lot of bands. But we are trying to obtain a way of study the diversity of this shell color polymorphism, and we are in the way. We are trying to obtain information of 6 different areas of this shell, but it is a work in construction. What we have found recently is that we have quantified the color polymorphism by means of luminance. The luminance is the luminous efficiency of the human eye across the entire visible spectrum. And we want to know in the future what could be the relationship between color polymorphism, luminance, and thermoresistance. We have found right now that darker shells have minor luminance than pale shells. But very interesting is that when in a study from 2007 to 2019, we have found that the yellow morph, or the mainly yellow shells, are the most frequent in populations and as morph, and the darker morph are lesser frequent in morph and in population, and in the quantity of population. It is very interesting for me, but it is, of course, another work in construction. We been studying the shell damage and the relationship with predation, because these species, all the other 5 species of Polymita, suffers by poaching, but when we check or study the empty shells in the population, we can see that there is a high pressure of the predation too as well. For example, we have found damage in the lip, in the body wall, and the shell base. We are sure that it has been produced by mainly birds, but we don't know what species of bird produce this pressure of predation. Look at this. The main frequency of damage in the shells are we have found in the lip of the shell, and the second frequency was found in the word. But the most important thing for us in this study of depredation is that when we compare Polymita, at least Polymita picta, with other species that coexist or co-occur in the same populations, we found that by a great difference, Polymita is selected for choice, significant in comparison with other species. It is important because the problem of conservation of Polymita is not tends to be not only the poaching pressure, the action of the men, but also the action of predator. Now, I would like to talk very shortly about my favorite subject is the reproductive behavior of Polymita. This amazing species is hermaphrodite. So each individual has two sexes at the same time and use the two sexes at the same time. But they have a very interesting organ in the reproductive system. It is the DAR apparatus. This DAR apparatus is used by robbing all parts of each between each other, all parts of the soft body. But the second way of use is the wiping. That is the robbing, but in a specific zone that we call sensitive zone. And a third way of use of the DAR apparatus is the scabbing. This DAR apparatus is used during all the mating behavior. And during the use of the DAR apparatus, there is a transfer of biological active substance. In fact, we are trying to do a decent science in the Cuban conditions. The decent science that come from basic observations, ecology, basic ecology, field work, the use of digital tools, mathematical tools, trap camera, physiology in vitro, and other tools. In what point are we now? Well, we remain the phrase de Theodosius Dochamsky: nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. And even when we have not resources to study genetics, we always have been interested in the relationship of Polymita with the rest of the land snails, with DAR apparatus, or with shell color polymorphism. This phylogenetic tree comes from a paper published in 2005. But at the moment, and thanks to my colleague Angus Davison and Alec Lewis, we have obtained this information about Polymita picta. It is the mitochondrial genome of Polymita picta. It is a great step in the study of Polymita picta, and we hope that in the future, thanks to Senckenberg institution with the Polymita picta genome. Thanks to our collaboration with Professor Joris Cohen at Fish University or Free University up on Amsterdam, and then to our college in University of Nottingham. We hope to put together all these things, all these results, even with the result of the college from Hassel University, and try to put our work in a new scale. Thanks to Nottingham University or University of Nottingham for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Bernardo. Thank you. We'll give you applause. And I think we're going to pass to Alec just to finish. Thank you, Bernardo. We're going to have...
Gracias a ustedes.
No, muchas gracias. Y habrá algunas preguntas, creo. Entonces vamos a pasar ahora a Alec. Si quieres salir, sacar la diapositiva, ¿no? El PowerPoint. Y vamos a... Alec, you want to just introduce yourself while we're waiting for... Bernardo, ¿quiere cerrar su PowerPoint? Y así podemos compartir.
Sí, enseguida.
Gracias.
Yeah, I'm a PhD student here in the School of Life Sciences. Angus is my PhD supervisor. Just going to talk a little bit about the work we're doing here from the genetics standpoint.
Okay, hold on a sec.
A few years ago, I alluded to this, I spoke in the centre before.
You did, you remember that? Should be it then. Okay, so over to you. Yeah.
So we'll skip the introduction to Polymita, which Bernardo has done most of that. And kind of rewind back to Mollusk of the Year 2022. That's really the point that we got involved. Well, I started my PhD then, so that's where I got involved. Angus had a bit of a pre-existing relationship with Bernardo, I believe. And to go back to what Bernardo mentioned is that the winner of Mollusk of the Year gets its whole genome sequence, so producing this massive genetic resource for the species. But the point that it's being produced, we didn't really have a clear picture of how Polymita and Cuban snails related to other snails. And so what we started with is really just trying to quantify what its relationships look like with other snails to really understand how this genome can be used for future research. And this is kind of what we knew at the start. These are the helicoid snails. This is the type of snail that the Polymita picture is, and they are global. But you can see just from this diagram that Cuban snails actually sit as this really quite nice outgroup to all of the other ones. I've included Wikipedia here because it's a great example of Wikipedia being wrong.
Sorry, I don't think it's advancing online.
Is it not advancing online?
So maybe if you just click on the...
I do the same thing.
Yeah,
Bernardo, can you see the slides now?
Yeah, you can see it now, yeah.
Yeah, I did. So. But the Cuban snail says this nice outgroup, and they certainly are not the same group as the American snails that Wikipedia has them down as being. Even the helminth piglet today, it labels them as a bit of an outdated term. It's used as a biological term, but it has a geographical limit. It sort of refers to snails in North America, which is a bit of an arbitrary border when it comes to biology. So the Xanthonichidae, which is the closer example. But what we've been doing is we've been taking the resource, the mitochondrial genome that Bernardo showed you. We've been comparing that with snails from around the world, and particularly we've got quite a nice bank of samples now from Cuba. All the photos here are of Cuban snails. And you can sort of see as they step through evolutionary history where they're starting to get these really beautiful colors and banding patterns are starting to appear. Not to say the other snails aren't beautiful as well, they are great, particularly the one at the bottom has a really sort of nice orange, sort of pinky orange hue to it. But actually, in terms of where our research that was being done in the Davison lab beforehand comes into play with this project, is this really quite obscure link between beautiful Cuban Polymita snails and a snail that might be a bit close to home. These are European grove snails. In some cases, they're very close to home. One of our main sampling sites for this pair is Angus's garden. But and you might even recognize actually from the photo, that is the lake on campus. They weren't found there. This is from a photo shoot for snails. But our interest in the link is that actually both these snails, one in Cuba and one close to home, show these really beautiful ranges of color patterns. And we've, with the pair, the British snail, we've got the genome already, and we've been able to do some genomics with them. They're easier to sample than slightly endangered Cuban snails. And we've got some ideas of genes that control color in them, and we can look at the new Polymita genome and look for convergence on how color is evolving in snails. I'll leave it there. It's small.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Bernardo's already mentioned it.
So these are the people that he's mentioned. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I will close that. And I will close that. So, entonces, do we have any questions? Please don't, I don't think any of us feel the pressure to be snail experts right now, right? I don't know, I don't, certainly. But there are some really interesting basic observations. Can I just ask kind of a political question? It sounds like, lo hago en inglés, ¿no, Bernardo? No hay problema. Tengo una pregunta más bien política, no en cuanto a Cuba, but the weight of a prize, the weight of an award, has that been a really essential catalyst to, not just for publicity, but also for research motivation, research impetus? I don't know, maybe Bernardo, please.
Please, could you repeat?
Yes, I can. So, has the award of Mollusk of the Year been an important catalyst to provide impetus, momentum for research to continue and accelerate on the Polymita picta? ¿Entiende?
Yes. In my opinion, it has been very positive. It has been very positive for our work, and for more important, the improve the intention of the government about the care of the biodiversity, of Cuban biodiversity, not only Polymita.
It's very interesting how outside interest from the outside can also be a stimulus for research within Cuba to be taken seriously.
But please.
Lo voy a decir en español, es interesante.
Yes, please.
Pasan otras disciplinas como el interés o el reconocimiento extranjero puede ser el motor para el interés nacional, no solo en Cuba, en muchos países, ¿no? Es decir, hay interés fuera de Cuba y eso promueve el interés dentro de Cuba.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. But even so, in Cuba at the moment, there is a very deep crisis, and there are other goals most important. But there are people that want to make science and conserve and to work for biodiversity for Cuban biodiversity.
Do you want to add anything, Angus or Alec?
Well, I have a question.
Oh, Angus tiene una pregunta. Angus has a question.
La tienda que se llama Caracol, why is that? What is the awareness of Polymita in Cuba? So if a tourist goes into the shop and it's called Caracol, do they know why it's called Caracol? Is there any of that?
Can we answer that as people who've been tourists?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Absolutely no.
But you know the shop.
Yeah, Caracol is a really
There's
famous.
no awareness.
We've all got a little bag at home that's
Wow.
got Caracol on it. All of us, everybody has got one.
Bernardo.
Todo el mundo
Yes,
tiene
no,
una
no,
jabita.
I can hear.
La pregunta de Angus es que si los turistas hacen la conexión entre el caracol de la jabita de la tienda de turismo y la Polymita picta. Y nosotros, como hemos sido turistas en Cuba, sabemos que no. Ellos compramos nuestra jabita con el caracol y nadie hace la conexión entre ese caracol y la Polymita picta.
But look at this. Look at this. When we was looking for votes for the second contest of mollusk of the year, we visited some office of Caracol shop, and they vote in mass. They say it is important for us because it is the symbol, the logo of our shop or our enterprise.
Good, excellent. Good
Yes.
for business, good for the snails. Good.
Yes, at least.
Before we started working on Polymita, did you people have any awareness of this snail in Cuba?
I did.
You did.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. I gave it to my kids. I had a Polymita picta. And I remember telling you about it and you were horrified because they're an endangered species. But you could buy them in the feria, in the market in Havana. In Havana, so they traveled all the way from the east to Havana. And then when I met Angus Bernardo, I have a friend who's from Baracoa, Yanis. And when I told her about the Polymita, I posted it on Facebook, I think, and Yanis, who's from Baracoa, said, "Ay, Polymita," and she told me a Taino legend about the Polymita, where it gets its colors, de donde saca los colores. Y es una historia de amor. Muy linda.
Yes. Do you mean that? Do you know what is the name of the person?
Yanis
Lobaina. She was a cultural promoter in Havana.
But there are not only one history about the color of Polymita, but it is a part of the Baracoa and Eastern Cuba culture. In fact, in Baracoa, Polymita is really a symbol. A very strong symbol in Baracoa, but in my opinion, the best populations, the more beautiful populations of Polymita are located in Maicí. Punta de Maicí. It is a paradise of shell color polymorphism, but it was a location very close during a lot of time. At the moment, it's open.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? Anybody curious about Polymita? So, in 2 minutes, can you explain the evolutionary logic behind the colors? So what has it got to do with, has it got a link to predators, for example? I'm just doing my David Attenborough thing. Has it got a link to predators, to, I don't know, is there a link that lay people like us could understand? Oh, he's looking at you, Alec.
Well, the question to ask him is why the colour varies of the snail here.
That's right.
You don't know. No, I did this. So most of Alec's PhD thesis is on a different set of snails.
Right.
And actually, it's really interesting because we began in 2022 or 2021 trying to work on the Cuban snails, and I think we introduced it at the start. Fortunately, we had other things, so it's taken more than 2 years to get to a point where we now have data. So most of this PhD thesis is actually on Japanese now.
Okay, right. Okay.
Please.
Bernardo, ¿por qué hay muchos colores?
¿Por qué
en
los
la
colores?
But
Los colores y los depredadores. ¿Qué tiene que ver con los aves y con... ¿Hay alguna conexión que se puede inferir?
But well, at the moment, it is a work on construction. But what we know is that there is a very strong pressure of predators on Polymita picta. When we compare with at least the 4 other species of land snails that occur with Polymita picta, always Polymita was the first place as prey. Even when we compare the availability of Polymita and other species, always Polymita was, even when we compare, look at this, the predation in agroecosystems and protected area, we found that in protected area, the predation is highest than in agroecosystems. But and what is the relationship with morph? At the moment, we have not quantified this difference. So the influence of the predation on one morph or another. But it's at least to me is very curious that almost 70% of population between Baracoa and Moisí that we have studied have mainly yellow color morph in high frequency. So predators have not too much spectrum to choice.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Bernardo, what is the main threat now? Is it trade or is it habitat?
La principal amenaza.
Sí.
Sí, en este momento. Para mí, for me, probably is the climatic change, the warming, because the reproduction of Polymita, all the species, the 6 species, is very seasonal. Between October and November is the maximum activity of reproduction or reproductive activity, and mostly during these 2 months the rains are very scarce. I hope that this year we could see, when Angus visited Cuba, we could see a lot of Polymita, because this year we have a lot of rain this sun. So finger crossed.
Okay, climate change.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? Quiero terminar con una invitación, Bernardo, y también para Angus y para Alec. En el centro nuestro, en el espacio virtual, tenemos un espacio que se llama la Cuba Profunda, donde colgamos trabajos sobre y de las provincias de Cuba, porque a veces solo trabajamos con trabajo que viene de La Habana. Entonces les invito a inaugurar la sección sobre Guantánamo con todo el trabajo que se ha publicado o que se ha escrito sobre la Polymita picta. Sería una manera muy bonita de abrir ese espacio. Yo le escribo, Bernardo.
Está bien, está bien. Con
Gracias.
mucho gusto. Y discúlpeme que le hable en español, pero usted habla un excelente español. Y además ha demostrado, yo estuve mirando cuando me dieron el nombre suyo, sus trabajos acerca de Cuba por arriba. No soy especialista en el tema. Y lo que ha demostrado hoy es un conocimiento de nuestra Cuba profundo. Muchas gracias. Me siento honrado.
Un placer. Y es parte del compromiso que tenemos. Y los estudiantes de posgrado, usted no puede ver, están dos muchachas, son muchachas que son estudiantes de posgrado de la Facultad nuestra de Artes. Una, Jess, está trabajando sobre el cambio climático, bueno, los desastres naturales, los ciclones y discursos de solidaridad en Cuba. Es un tema muy interesante. Y Lea, que también tampoco la puedes ver, está aquí trabajando sobre la cultura popular y la resistencia laboral en los años 30 en Cuba. Así que con suerte van a ir a Cuba este año o el año que viene.
Allá la esperamos si necesitan nuestro apoyo, nuestra ayuda.
Algún día vendremos a la Polymita picta y usted también.
Okay. Bien, que así
bueno,
sea.
Muchas gracias, de verdad.
Muchísimas gracias a Angus, a Alec y a todos los que están ahí.
Thank you, Alec, as well. Chao.
Chao, chao.
Chao, chao. Okay.